Good evening. Welcome to Net That Haul, Gameweek 9, the big weekend, Manchester Derby and North London Derby ahead, as well as many other matchups. I'm, of course, FPLNima, and I'm joined by FPLMariner and FPLLens. How are you guys?
Well, surviving. I think I'm still on the body clock of London, so I've had about 2 hours sleep.
Somehow made it still.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too great. How are you, Gabe?
I think I'm the only one that's like relatively fully fit of the three of us here. It's mid-afternoon. It's about, I don't know, it's about 30 degrees or so, a little more than 30 degrees. Light breeze outside, first beer down the hatch, and things are pretty rosy around here right now. Sorry.
Well, we're certainly flagged, Nima.
Definitely, yeah. So obviously you're both on Wildcard as well, so it's going to be an exciting episode looking at what your picks are looking like so far. Obviously, a few days to go and some presses to come yet and training photos. But in terms of kind of today, I've obviously gone with the graphic for the City United game. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about captaincy. Obviously, you guys are on Wildcard, so I'll be interested to see if you guys have Salah in your team and whether he's an option for you as a captain alternative to Haaland. So that'll be an interesting topic as well when we get to the metric. But for now, let's just do a quick look at the mini league. Oh, actually, before the mini league, so I've just realized there's two different shared screens. So thank you to everyone who nominated us. So we are so pleased and proud to make the final of the Football Content Awards this year again. It feels like it was even more difficult this time around because there was only 6 finalists in the creators category for best in fantasy football. So we're up against kind of channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers and celebrities who've been in the game for 15 years. So honestly, it means so much to us for little old Net That Haul to be amongst the royalty and to be kind of considered a finalist in this. So there's kind of voting live now until October 9th, I think. So there's still some time. It's the final round of votes. I think the kind of first, second, and third will be announced in November at the award ceremony. So if you can leave a vote for Net That Haul, if you ever found any of our content useful, if you find today interesting, you'll see the links in the live chat and in the comments. You should go to the Football Content Awards page. It will be on podcast description too. And go to the best in fantasy football category, and in the creators section, you'll find us. So really appreciate the support so far to get us this far, and would love your continued support just to try and see if we can sneak into third and get a podium finish somehow.
We have more nominations to the Football Content Awards than we have years doing Net That Haul under our belt. So we'll be 2, I think, this January, and we'll have two nominations before we turn 2. So it's quite the achievement, fellas. I'm proud of this.
It is. I have to say I'm very proud about it. But, I just can't help think that John Terry is going to turn up again trying to gate crash everybody else's awards because, he normally does. I expect to see these photos, Nima, in Manchester of you, gate crashing others' awards as well. That's quite normal.
Yeah, so the good news is obviously last year I asked to sit with other finalists that I knew in the FPL space. So this year there's already 4 of us who are all going up, and we've all asked to sit together. So I'll be sitting with FPL Focal, who is actually in the best newcomers category. So he's not even in the fantasy football category, thank God, because I don't know how we beat him in his 100k subs either. But so one less big shark out the way there. We've got FPL Harry, who somehow landed in the editorial category. So he doesn't know how he's there either. But again, at least we're not competing against a friend. And then we have Raptor, who obviously we are competing against Ross. So the 4 of us are going to sit together. So I'm sure if any one of them do win an award, you will no doubt see me put on the John Terry shirt and hold their trophy and claim it as my own for all of social media to see. So whatever happens, I'm going to leave a winner, even if we don't win.
Of course.
Caller Mike Halpin says that he's voted on a daily basis so far, and that is a reminder that you can, and we hope you will vote every single day using their email addresses.
Send it around your work, send it everywhere. That's what I've done.
Give people bonuses at work, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. But
yeah, more to get my staff.
I'm going to send it to my colleagues as well. But yeah, no, honestly, guys, like this is our second full season. Obviously, it started in 2020, halfway through that season. I think it was game week 20 or so. So we're actually approaching episode 100 on the podcast. There's slightly more on the YouTube channel, but it just feels like such a milestone to hit triple digit pods. And honestly, we couldn't have done it without all your continued support. And on that note, big thank you to all the haulers who are members on YouTube. So Harbor Boy is our first super hauler. And we have William Frick, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, Sarah Gatsby, and FPL Robbie. So thank you all for your support, guys. And then the rest of the haulers are Akshay, Tursk, Sea Hunt, FPL Penguin, FPL DG Boy, Lindsay, The Vindra Raj, FPL Casuals, Tom Gorish, Stuart Fletch, Mr. Twister, Blonde, S. Scotters M, Firetog, FPL Teacher, Lucien, who has come on a few times now, Oscar Arias, Donny, FPL Mike Halpin, who's here tonight live, as is FPL Teacher, Sean Burke, Jack Daglish, Nehal, Kevin Rose, FPL Safa, who's also here live tonight. Good to see you, mate. Podner, FPL Craig Dread. And we do actually also have Dom Black Dragon, who's we've managed to fix his subscription issue. So he's back in the Discord now. His YouTube got deleted last time round, so I had to give him like a fake role, and then he's managed to fix it. So very kind of him being honest and reaching out to get that sorted. As a reminder, obviously, you can get access to all the data from the show, the matchups, the scouting reports that Gabe does, the NetxG, as well as all of Mariner's metrics, the FDRs, the zonals, and the captaincy. They're normally dropped a few days in advance in the Discord server. So if you do become a YouTube member or a patron, if you're listening on podcast, smash the link in the description and come and join the community and have a chat with all of us on Discord and get some of the data early access. I will hand over to you, Mariner, for the Minileague. I feel like you used to do the Minileague every time last year when you were in the top 5, but you don't seem so keen anymore.
Don't worry about that. There's time yet. There's time yet. I'm trying to catch Gabe at the moment. That's the challenge. But
I'm treading water.
Yeah, it's all right. It's no problem. Anyway, Shroot Farms, Vibab still top with 486 points. Captain Haaland. The Cafu Fighters in second. Craig Richards. Brokeback Mountain 10, down at the FPL Way third. Misclick with Togier in fourth. Clark is upgrades. Paul Clark fifth. 480 points. Yeah, it's pretty tight there. There's only 13 points between first and 10th. So yes, it's. I think it just shows just how don't panic at this moment in time if you've not got a great rank, because you need one good week and you're right up there. And I think that's basically what I would say. I don't know whether you're covering that in your philosophy, Gabe, or what you're doing with that this week, but we'll move on to that right now.
I just thought I'd add to that because it's the second or third week in a row that you've said this, but that team in the top 5 is actually called Brokeback Mount, like Mason Mount. It's not Brokeback Mountain, but I'm like every week you seem to kind of just start to read it. You're like Brokeback Mountain.
Well, I mean that's just a habit, but I'm afraid I've got a good excuse. It's sort of like 6:15 with 2 hours sleep. So.
I see the excuses coming out. You don't want everyone to know your favorite movie.
Yeah, I think he probably. I have no idea. Let's keep going. Gabe, philosophy.
Saved by philosophy this week, Mariner. Here we go. Nima wanted to nail you to that cross. The FPL philosophy of the week for Gameweek 9. This was actually I was a guest on the Fantasy Pavilion last week, so it was initially presented on there. Go check him out. It's a great fantasy channel. Has a fantasy everything basically. But this week it's a quote that comes to us from Plutarch, and he says, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled." And this is kind of like the idea, and this comes from the process of wildcarding. And it comes from the idea, like everybody says, like kids are sponges and the mind is a sponge. And a sponge is a very passive thing. You just you put things into it and it just absorbs it because it has no choice. But the mind isn't like that at all, right? The mind is actually, it's a process. And that's a process that requires like a fire, and the more you fuel it with information and different perspectives, then the more acute you can make your mind, and the more acute you can make your perspectives. And it's just been a process that I've been reminded of when compiling my wildcard draft.
Fair enough.
I was just waiting for his response.
This early with this little sleep, I wouldn't expect much of it. I expect the next slide from Mariner.
I think it's
understandable too.
I'm going to read it back. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Right, okay. My mind is a sieve right now. So how do we describe that? My wild card, I triggered my wild card very early. Then I haven't looked. Made one set of moves very early on, made another set of moves the other day, and have not looked again.
You've missed all those amazing price rises, Mary.
Well, actually, don't get me started. What the fuck's happening with people like Salah?
The phantom hold,
yeah. Drop already, Salah. Come on.
He's not dropping.
He's not going to drop.
Not after he scored for Egypt, he's not dropping. No, it's not happening. They're holding it back on purpose as well, I'm sure. They're always like this. They did this with Martial, I think, a few seasons as well, where when you got players from top 6 teams, they don't want them to go below the starting price. So I think they just like artificially just don't let it happen. So yeah, I'm sure I've seen this before. It's like a common theme, let's just say, of the non-transparency around price changes.
I'm afraid just another thing that I moan about FPL from time to time about how opaque some of these rules seem to be taken. It's not a level playing field with some of these players. I'm quite sure. I agree with you, Nima, and it's not good because the logic says he had to drop, right?
You can't have that many sales and just not drop. It just does not make sense.
And you can't have that many wildcards to not stop, to not make a sale. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, let's keep going. So let's go for these matchups then. So we're going to start with the North London derby. Nima's flagged. He's trying his hardest to get to the game. Might even have to go to work so that he has to be able to get to the game.
Nima, why don't we start with your perspective on the North London derby really quick here?
Yeah, so I actually had an interesting look. So neither team has beaten the opponent away from home in a very long time. So Spurs last won at the Emirates in the league in 2010, and Arsenal last won in the league at their stadium in 2014. So everything points to a home team advantage. Like I think Arsenal had 6 wins and 4 draws in those 10. So I would think that with the way the season's unfolded so far and the kind of the expansive possession-based football we're trying to play, that we're not going to change that approach in this match. Like you're not going to see Arsenal try to like create a low block to prevent Spurs countering, for instance. I think we're going to be out of the blocks straight away. I think it could be a very high scoring affair. My kind of prediction so far was more of like a 2-2. I could see both teams scoring. I can see a draw in this game. I'd love, like the optimist in me would love to think we can win, but all it takes is a couple of errors, and like their strikers are so clinical. It's like a guaranteed goal if we make 1 or 2 errors. So I think we have to basically like execute perfectly. It can't be like the Man United game where we took 16 shots and couldn't win. So it's like we can't dominate the game and come away with nothing. So for me personally, if I'm being really honest, I would be unhappy with anything but a win at this stage based on how the season's gone. So like I would want to win this game. The realist in me expects a 2-2 draw.
Okay, interesting. Well, let's get into what we have a little bit really quickly before I go into this. I just want to say I'm wearing the Peru jersey here for our friend Nick Khan that's in the chat. He just did the Inca Trail and then went up to Machu Picchu. So that was pretty amazing. We followed he shared his journey there. So the way that some of the matchups for some of the fixtures this week that we're going to do them, it'll be like a kind of like a 2-part thing. Think of this as like data FC, and then think of another one as grass FC. So we'll look at the tactics. But as far as the data is concerned here for the North London derby, Arsenal have the most chances created from the center. No surprise there with the it's not just Jesus, right? It's what Xhaka's doing in that left half space when Martinelli pulls wide, and what Odegaard is doing on the right side as well. So no surprises there. On the other side, Tottenham, they've conceded the fewest big chances, as we were talking about, Nima. They've only conceded 6 big chances, but many other teams are on like 7 big chances. So there's like this group on the bottom of about 6 or 7 teams that have conceded very few big chances. That basically comes from either 1, you have the ball all the time, like City, or 2, you are a top-ish team playing counterattack, and that's the case here with Tottenham, and we'll get to the styles of play here momentarily. Tottenham also have the second most chances created from the center. Again, no surprise there when you have Kane and then you have 2 inverted wingers alongside him. Most chances are going to come from the center there. The expected stats, Arsenal are between 3rd and 5th, or almost all expected stats from attack and defense. And Spurs are between 2nd and 6th for those same stats. So it's really interesting because the expected stats are quite similar, even though the style of play is different. Let's see. On a shot perspective, they have Arsenal have the joint most shots in the 6, so 16 shots inside the 6-yard box. Funnily enough, along with Spurs, also 16 shots in the 6. So again, they match up quite nicely there. Just a slight advantage as far as the shots per 90 for Arsenal and the XG per shot. It's just a slight advantage for Arsenal there. Like we always say, do come to if you're listening on the podcast, do come to the YouTube channel there's a lot of just information and stuff. I'm not going to read out every single slide because it can get tedious, but I'll highlight some key points and come back to see the details here. So NetxG has Arsenal at 1.6, Spurs at 1.53, pretty even across the board. Until it likes Arsenal a little bit more, and that's understandable because Arsenal does control the game. I think it's just going to depend on execution of the different styles of play. Speaking of those styles of play, if we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the tactics surrounding this match. So this is the flip side of the FPL matchup, so the eye test or grass FC. And what I mentioned here is exactly what you said, Nima. I found this in my research as well. The home team has won the North London Derby in each of the last 4 Premier League fixtures. So that goes back, a couple of years. Arsenal are a team that like to control the ball. We have 2 heat maps there on the right-hand side. On the bottom, we can see kind of how Arsenal control the ball, even across the center where they attack. So attacking is down in that lower heat map and defending is up. So you see how Spurs basically attack only down the wings and they try to avoid any kind of possession in the center of the field. Whereas Arsenal are happy to possess all over the field and attack from those half spaces as well. Spurs will go wide to then use their inverted wingers to attack the half spaces, whereas Arsenal can attack the half spaces from anywhere. Because of this, I expect Arsenal the narrative of this game at the end is going to be that Arsenal controlled the game. They will control this game. That doesn't mean they necessarily play better, though. What I would watch out for is just really execution. It's whoever executes the game plan better will win this game. My money would be on Arsenal, but it's much easier to execute a counter-attacking game plan than it is what Arsenal is trying to do.
Yeah, no, I think something I want to compare here is so similar to your heat maps. I looked at like the controlled zones for both teams, and what you see with Arsenal is they play everywhere on the pitch. Like they just look to play everywhere. Mm-hmm. And with Spurs, they don't really on their control zones. It's like they don't really leave their box. Like it's basically their box, the right back position, where I'm assuming like the goalkeeper's passing the ball to Emerson with lots of short goal kicks, and then like that's about it. Like it doesn't even expand beyond the halfway line really. Whereas Arsenal's is everywhere. Now the place where it looks like the matchup and it matches your data here is it looks like the side where Perisic is, if he kind of pushes forward, that could be exposed massively as well. But even Emerson, so like both sides, that's where I think both teams are in that scenario, right? So for Arsenal, they're going to want to get like Martinelli in behind someone like Emerson when he's gone forward, and then he's going to cross it to Jesus. Something I will say is I think Zinchenko will play because when we've seen Tierney play, he plays more in the position that Martinelli wants to play. And although that might seem like a good thing for FPL assets, I would argue it's not, because he's much better on that wing where he has more time and he can attack the fullback and run to the byline and cross the ball to Jesus. when you saw the games with Tierney occupies the place Martinelli wants to occupy. Martinelli goes more central, which you would assume is better because you're more likely to get more attacking returns in the middle, right? But what it actually comes down to is Martinelli then has less space because the defenders are closer to him in the middle. So yes, he's in the position you want him, and maybe a ball will bounce to him, but he's not as good as where he's in his ideal position coming in off the wing. So I think Zinchenko will play, and then equally that's where Spurs' main attacking threat comes from, because they will look to attack it the way Palace did in the first week of the season. And I think you saw Zinchenko got subbed early and stuff. We're going to want to play in a way where that Zinchenko, Xhaka, Martinelli triangle, they're kind of playing together. But we know that Zinchenko doesn't play left back. So again, there's going to be this huge space that Spurs can just kind of get in behind, whip the ball straight to Kane. So I think both teams are going to have a similar game plan. And it's going to be, as you say, coming down to who actually executes it. You know, if like Ramsdale's positioning's bad, he's not going to get away with it against these strikers. If on their side, you know, they're trying to push forward with like Emerson, he's going to get absolutely slaughtered as well. So that's why I'm going for 2-2, because I just don't see either team being able to keep a clean sheet in this situation.
Yeah, I see goals as well. Should we have a quick look at the fixture difficulty and things like and just compare to where we are? So if we look at fixture difficulty, so Arsenal has a fixture difficulty of 1.1, so slightly positive for attack and 0.6 for defence. Spurs just obviously slightly the opposite way. So not an awful lot in there. I tell you what is interesting, though, when we look at the zonals, because I think this backs up what you're talking about, Gabe. Arsenal have the best matchup of the week at 5.2 through the middle.
Yeah.
That's very high. And it's not very rare you actually see that. So rare, I had to check it.
to make sure it's correct.
To make sure it hadn't got corrupted. But no, it's absolutely correct. So, yeah, Arsenal's matchup, particularly good with respect to the zonals. Spurs not so. So it may be Spurs might have to be super clinical to get that 2-2, Nima.
And they are, right. They do consistently perform their XG, and I think it kind of comes down to that setup, like that central matchup for Arsenal. If you go back to the heat map, there's the area that Xhaka operates in. That's why I really like Xhaka this week. In that half space there, if you look at the top heat map, the Spurs chances conceded heat map. You see how it's like their defensive right side, which is or right half space, which is Arsenal's left half space. I think if Martinelli pulling wide and getting to the end line and knocking it across goal for Jesus, I think that's one way, as I mentioned there. But I think the other way, by Martinelli pulling wide, I think Xhaka can penetrate that half space, and he could see some returns. It's a shame Arsenal blank in 12. Otherwise, I'd probably favor Xhaka as my fifth midfielder over Andreas Pereira.
I think he's, I think Xhaka's been overlooked for a while. So something Clayton and I spoke about was like this outcome bias, where people are like kind of saying like, what's changed? Like, how come Xhaka's getting attacking returns? The truth is he was kind of playing this same role for the team, like towards the tail end of last season too. But at the time, Partey wasn't fit, so he had to do more defensive work. Tavares was playing left back, not Zinchenko or Tierney. When you look at Xhaka and Zinchenko, they have like this chemistry that I don't understand. Like, I think you probably know this word better than me, Gabe, but I'm going to try and pronounce this: the automatums, or
automatons.
So say that again.
Automatons.
Automatons, yeah. So they basically like just move between zones, and like they don't have a position. Like Xhaka and Zinchenko don't need to talk; they just occupy each other's spaces. So that's why I think he will start, because that's going to be vital. But also we saw when Xhaka gets the ball now, he just kind of looks up and tries to ping it straight to Jesus at the far post. So he is going to be going for that opportunity, and seeing this chances conceded map, that gives me a lot of hope that he's going to be the late runner that they don't expect, and he's going to just arrive and hopefully help us get a goal. But
he's going to one. He's Gundogan.
He's playing that role. Obviously, he's not as good as him at that role, but it's similar to Gundogan. Like Gundogan's one of the best players at City, but Pep said once he started getting goals because he changed his role slightly, he was like, "Oh, he's always been this good. We've always rated him, but the masses only see goals and assists, which is output and outcome bias, I was trying to say. So with Xhaka, like, there's not a new thing where you got to worry, is this sustainable? Like, this is how he's now going to play. Like, this is his role. He has less defensive duties.
I'm actually amazed. I'm amazed he's only got 2 yellow cards. He's got a red card in him, though. That's one of my biggest worries, Gabe.
That's true.
So I've heard that, and that's a big myth too. So he has played the most minutes. No, I think he's got 3 red cards in 5 seasons in the league, and nearly every other. It is every other player who played as many games as him has double or more. So it's like, these are some of the things, again, that I mean. Like, I've seen it. The media is very good at ripping people down. So they ripped him down initially. Then they ripped down Maguire. And then now they're ripping down Trent. The media are very good at just ripping someone down, and they find it insane. I think Xhaka's an easy target, and referees also hear that and think, oh, yeah, he's a walking yellow card. Just give him a card. But, Jesus is on 4 yellows. Is he not surely going to get the 5th one in the North London derby and be banned for Liverpool? like surely, right?
One of the reasons why I've not got him in my wildcard.
So I'd like to just mention one last point on the North London derby. I think FPL teacher makes it here. Home advantage translates into the refereeing decisions. We should mention set piece threats. Saliba is primed for a haul, as many of us, including myself, are selling him.
I don't see that. Not in the headed matchups. It's not there.
I don't.
It could go beyond headed matchups and just like set pieces.
It could
just a straight set piece.
Just set pieces.
It could be a straight set piece rather than that. You're absolutely right, but I don't see it on the headed matchups. Nothing there. That's why I'm not convinced right now. When we get to teams later, I am starting Gabriel right now, but I'm predicting 2-2. So why I'm starting a defender that's going to concede 2 goals, in my view, I don't know. So clearly, I have some bias that hopefully he'll score, but knowing my luck, it will be bloody Saliba, won't it? Probably.
Yeah.
They'll probably keep a clean sheet as well, because I've sold all my Arsenal defenders. But anyway, there we go. Shall we move on? Because we're just a bit mindful.
Let's get to the next one.
One thing we said today, we had to try and get out of the way. We're half an hour in. One match.
To be fair, only 2 of the matchups are going to warrant this level of discussion, I think.
True enough.
That's true.
True enough. Right, let's put this back on the screen then. So the next one, Bournemouth-Brentford. This shouldn't take too long. Gabe.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through the details of this. I'll just go through the analysis really quickly. But I do find this one an interesting matchup or a fixture here because of the conversation on Twitter right now of people saying that, I think it was Late Riser that said, if you got a laboratory and you could create the perfect fixtures, it would be the fixtures for Solanke. And I don't understand that kind of logic, because Bournemouth can't be in that fixture run, and you want to play Bournemouth in your perfect fixture run. So go with the forward that's playing against Bournemouth, not playing with Bournemouth. I think would be the obvious advice. Brentford conceding from the center is more to do with the opponents that they've faced. But does show hope for Billing and maybe even Solanke, which I think is an interesting irony in this conversation. But adding context to the shots in the box here and expected goals on penalty, their second fewest shots in the box with less they have the second fewest shots in the box and the second lowest expected goals at 6.07. A 70% chance of a clean sheet for Brentford really says that, I would not invest in Bournemouth attackers, in any Bournemouth attackers. And things are primed for Brentford here. I think they're going to go back to their 4-3-3/4-5-1/ kind of dynamic midfield. And I think Tony's going to be in the positions he's always in. FPL teacher on his pod, he mentioned that, one of the reasons that they're going to go direct more to Tony now with this setup. Tony will shift to the left and get more balls direct. But this is an easy and obvious matchup for Brentford.
It does seem that way. And when we look at the fixture difficulty, it doesn't really show it, because I think Brentford away from home, and maybe Bournemouth's data skewed a little bit from that very, very first game week. So that's possibly answering that. But then
one last thing I'll say, Mariner, is Brentford do have, I believe they have the highest number NetxG coefficient this week at 1.99.
Okay, all right. Headed matchups for Brentford are very positive, interestingly enough. And zonals, we'll have a quick look. Brentford's right looks best, interestingly enough. I mean, look, for me, it's similar to my golf game, as I said to somebody yesterday, even a broken watch is right twice a day. That's all I'm going to say about Solanke.
Yeah, sounds right.
I think for me, if I was going to buy him, which I'm not, but if I was, I would consider 2 goals between now and Gameweek 13 a success. Like, anyone who thinks it's going to be more than that is probably overthinking it. Like, because he's 5.7, 5.8 million. I guess the reality is, like, we compare him to the likes of Tony and Isaac, who's now injured, but they're not the same price point. So I think it's like the difference of, do you have Solanke and Maddison, or do you have Tony and Neto? So
no, but just, I mean, but it even goes beyond that, because in having Solanke, right, there's an opportunity cost, and you're losing out on really productive forwards, which many people will have in their teams, and you'll be missing out on that. And then you'll be missing out on, you might as well go to a 4-5 forward that doesn't play, bench him, and invest that money in a position where it matters. Go Neko up to Trippier or something like that. You can make a vast improvement elsewhere than trying to bench. I mean, I think if Solanke scores 2 goals between now and the World Cup, that's a success.
Even to the World Cup Gameweek 16.
That's what people are buying.
Yeah, no, I think FPL Teacher makes a good point. So someone who I had on my radar last season, because people who played Fantasy Championship mentioned him, was Billing. And he's saying that actually these matchups favor Billing more, and he's cheaper than Solanke. So maybe there is something in what you're saying about having the more exciting attacker like a Tony. And then if you do need to then have a cheaper mid to afford it, that's where maybe if you want to attack Bournemouth's fixture run, you go for Billing, because he's not in a position where there's an opportunity cost as such, because it's like your 5th midfielder or something.
Yeah, and to be honest, that 5th midfielder slot is a pile of shit at the moment, isn't it? Because Andreas now is offset pieces and things. So that Bailey, I still don't trust him to start enough. And it makes you think that, you put Solanke in, and the only real reason I see for Solanke is if you went Kane and Haaland up top. That's the only real reason why I might think about that. Because I agree with you, Gabe. You're taking Mitrovic or Tony out of the equation, and I just don't think I can take either out of the equation right now. So yeah, I'll have to look at that Billing shout. That's an interesting one. I've not considered that one yet.
I write about it in the tactical analysis of this, and that'll come out in the thread probably overnight.
Yeah. Okay, next one, Palace and Chelsea.
Palace and Chelsea are an interesting one. Chelsea with a NetxG of 1.51, Palace with 1.1. 2 teams that I think have actually been underperforming their personnel. Just to go over some of the stats. Let's see. Palace have the joint most big chances conceded, albeit in some difficult matchups. They've conceded 20 big chances this season. And Chelsea have the 5th most big chances conceded with 16. So it could be like the battle of the big chances here. So there could be goals in this one as well. They've created similar chances to Chelsea, and Chelsea have created similar chances. They have pretty balanced attacks overall, and their chance creation stats are quite similar. So they're even on that front. The expected stats, Crystal Palace have the 3rd worst expected goals non-penalty with 6.26. Now there's a group of about 6 teams within that 6 range, 6 or 7 teams within the 6 range. So when I say 3rd worst, it probably sounds worse than it really is. It's like a big block in there. Whereas on the flip side, Chelsea's production, they align with their expected stats. So like basically what they're putting out, what we're seeing is in alignment as like what we would expect from their stats. Crystal Palace are 11th for expected goals on target, yet 3rd worst for expected goals on penalty, which means that they have their expected goals on target. Their shooting gives them an XG of 8.21, whereas the XG itself is 6.26. which I thought was interesting. But you have to keep in mind that there's at least one penalty included in there, maybe two, and that's what could kind of could account for some of the difference there. Let's see. And Chelsea have the 10th, our 10th for expected goals on target, with finishing kind of according to their stats at 8.89 compared to around 7 for their XG. Shots perspective, Palace have the second most shots in the box conceded with 77, and Chelsea have the fourth fewest shots in the box conceded with 42. Palace have 5 goals from inside the box conceded, and Chelsea have 7 goals from inside the box conceded. So Chelsea conceded a little bit more goals inside the box, but they concede fewer shots inside the box, which makes you wonder, will there be a goalkeeper change? And I know that there's been rumors around that, and Mendy hasn't been playing well for maybe this calendar year or so, maybe a little bit more than that. So could we see Kepa that's better playing with his feet? I don't know. It's just something to watch out for. Other than that, I think mostly even. What do you think?
Well, Kepa. It'd be nice, wouldn't it, if it was that price? But saying that, I don't know whether I dare double up on him. That's my problem. Was it Fofana's also 4.4, isn't he?
Yeah.
Have you had him in your drafts?
We don't know how the back line, I think, is going to set up yet, or if Fofana will be rotated. FPL teacher saying the James versus Zaha matchup here should be interesting. I do agree with that, but I think James will be pushed up a little bit too high to deal with Zaha, and my expectation is that Zaha will be kind of like that outlet on the counterattacks. I think Crystal Palace is good. They're going to sit in a shell and use Eza to kind of link the play to then Zaha in space, perhaps Mateta as well on crosses. So I think it'll be more Zaha versus the right center back than Zaha versus James.
Okay. All right, fine. Do you want to look at the zonals, or should we keep the other bits? Should we keep going? From the point of view of fixture difficulty, there's nothing much. Everything's very neutral for this one, so don't really need to talk about it. Again, possibly see goals. I expect it to be a bit of blood and thunder, so could be a good game actually. But there's nothing much in the stats to really suggest anything. The only problem I have at the moment is I own both James and Zaha in my wildcard. It looks like I've just now realised they're playing each other.
Yeah, me too.
Shows how disconnected I've been this week. But anyway, there we go.
I think the only thing I would add is there's a lot of people who feel like they've missed the boat on Pope, and like at his price point now, they're not willing to go there, especially if they already have Trippier. They don't want double defense as well. So someone like Gaeta, if we think he's safe as the number one goalkeeper, which there's some debates because last year there was games where he just randomly didn't play, and they have 2 good goalkeepers on the bench as well. And they have Johnston and is it Butland there still? So there are keepers there, and they could just randomly play. But if you think you can get to game week 16 World Cup and you're confident Gaeta starts, like he's a very cheap, affordable option for someone like me who has Sanchez to maybe move to. And I'm not really considering Pope, but that's just one thing I would say. And then the other one is if you didn't want him, if you want to keep your goalkeeper pairing, I think at this point it's a bold claim, but I think over Fofana, I would take Guehi, who dropped in price as well. So he seems like a great enabler. He could get an attacking return as well. Like it's not out of the question. And I think Palace's fixtures have been very tough up until now. So the fact that they've even had decent defensive numbers at times, considering the opponents they've played, I think that puts it in perspective that hopefully with a better run coming after game week 10 onwards, I expect there to be a good turnaround for Zaha owners, Guehi, Gaeta, any of them. I think a Palace double up is not out of the question from game week 10 onwards, in my opinion.
Well, I've already got a Palace double up in my wildcard when we come to it later on. I have actually got Gaeta in at this moment in time, and I've contemplated Guehi instead of Gaeta if I went another way with respect to goalkeepers. So I expect I will be going with one of Palace's backline. Just depends which one. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just does. You mentioned about the other goalkeepers. It's not something I've thought about, but I'd like to think I can limp him through to 16, and I've always got that Shitbag Ward on the bench if needed.
If he doesn't get dropped.
If he doesn't get dropped as
I
well.
was going to suggest, I think the power play now, if you've got big balls, is get Ward and Iverson, because it will only cost you like 7.9 million, and their defensive fixture run looks great. You know, like they're bound to keep a clean sheet at some point this season. They haven't yet, and who cares if one of them gets dropped if you've got both? I'm starting Ward this week. I'm starting him most of the next few weeks instead of Sanchez. And I very firmly believe I'm finally going to be rewarded with my clean sheet at some point. If I get one clean sheet in the next 4 weeks, I will consider it a success.
You know what I said about that broken watch? You know what I said about the broken watch, didn't you? It's another example. Ward.
Yep. What the thing about Guaita is he was benched last season for a worse keeper. Now they have Johnstone and just waiting there. He's a much better keeper than who was a replacement last season.
Was it Butland maybe?
I don't think
was
so.
It another? They have a few. They've always had a few.
Yeah, and Guaita has the 4th worst expected goals prevented this season. So it's not like he's playing well. He's not playing well, and they have a better goalkeeper than last season, and he was benched last season. So it stands to reason Guaita will be benched, which is why I'm going with Gay in my wild card.
He doesn't make many saves or get into the bonus either, does he? That's the thing. So I think it's a price thing. People who don't want double Newcastle defense or can't afford Pope, they're looking that way, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's food for thought. when I eventually do get round to thinking about FPL this week. Anyway, there we go. Fulham Newcastle, Gabe. Just a quick look.
Yeah, very quick look here. Fulham Newcastle, quite even again. I'm sure the FDR is probably going to show them the matchup is quite neutral. NetxG says 0.93 for Fulham, Newcastle 1.2, with the most likely outcome here in this one as 1-1, like in many of the other neutral matchups. I'll just go over the analysis quickly and kind of skip the details and the detailed stats. The analysis, I'm saying, so Newcastle's attack is actually, when you look at it, it's incredibly balanced. It's from different sides, but the thing is, they do it in different ways. They have a creative passing triangle on the right hand side with Trippier pulling forward and kind of completing that. And providing the width, and then on the left hand side they have Saint-Maximin and Joe Wellington, kind of like penetrating lines with their dribble. I just say 2 evenly matched teams, with Newcastle having the slight statistical advantage and Fulham having the home advantage. This really very much reads like a draw to me. But that being said, I don't see clean sheets for either one of these teams.
No, interesting. Matchup fixture difficulty wise gives Fulham a very positive fixture at 2.3. So that plays to that home advantage sort of story there. But again, you know, Fulham's defensively minus 0.8, which probably suggests Newcastle are going to nip something as well. So yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think there's goals in it. I'd probably go 2-1 here. I think Fulham might be 2-1 or even 3-1. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I fancy Fulham at home. I really do. And yeah, I mean, at home, I think they are a different beast to away from home for sure. So okay, next one. 12 riding cake. Liverpool Brighton. The Mo Salah debate.
This is an interesting one. I don't know, just looking over the stats, I don't know how relevant these stats are with Liverpool getting healthy and Brighton having a new manager. So I'm going to skip the stats just a little bit and talk a little bit about the analysis, and then maybe we can go kind of straight into the tactics on this one, Mariner, that I find a little bit more interesting. So NetxG sees Liverpool, obviously favors Liverpool 1.73 NetxG to 1.14 for Brighton. But you see when the shots model goal predictor there, when it's lit up with green, it means both teams are pretty decent. So it says if it's green, if it's a low chance of 0 or 1 goals, and then it's also green if there's a high chance of 2, 3, or 4 or more goals. Again, this is another one of those fixtures, very low chance of a clean sheet for either one of these teams. The most likely result looks like a 2-1 Liverpool or 1-1, perhaps. but you could see Brighton getting a couple here, especially if that Serbi's new tactics start working out. If the game does get out of hand, obviously Liverpool is more likely to score more goals than Brighton is. So expect that Serbi to come in and kind of control, like keep the game conservative, even though that's not his style. I expect them to come in and not really be dogmatic. But to speak on that, let's get to the tactical slide. And before I get into this tactical slide, Liverpool versus Brighton, I just want to refer you for more detailed Brighton analysis. Check the videos on the channel. We did do at Libero FPL, and I did a tactical analysis of that Serbi last week. I think it was on Thursday. So check it out. It's about 25 minutes, and it's pretty detailed. You'll get all the information you need there. What I wrote here is Liverpool want to exert their dominance against a new arrival. So De Zerbi is known for building out of the back, and his philosophy is the following. He says he doesn't gamble, so he doesn't like sending long balls, kicking long balls for goal kicks, because it's kind of a 50-50 of who's going to get it, which is why he likes to play out of the back. He says it's less of a gamble to do so, which I think is interesting and a little counterintuitive. So he wants to he wants his center backs to possess the ball, and his center backs have been shown to sometimes they'll stand there, they'll stop playing, they'll just put their foot on the ball until the other team kind of come at them. And I think just kind of like the way it's set up, the way that Serbi wants to come out and play, and Liverpool with getting Jota healthy, I don't think that's a good combination for De Zerbi. And I think Liverpool is going to go really kind of emphasize the press and emphasize a high-intensity game here. I have a Diogo Jota map up there with like his goals, his shots on target, and just to show how central he is. I think everybody's worried that Jota is going to come in and replace Luis Diaz. That doesn't really make much sense if you want to use his pressing ability to put him on the wing. So I do believe Jota is going to come in straight in, play the 9. He's the best 9 they have. He's better than Darwin Nunez by a distance, and he's certainly better than Roberto Firmino at this stage of his career. So I expect a front 3 of Diaz, Jota, and Salah. And I think the pressure from that front 3 is really going to get to the De Zerbi. And this game, if De Zerbi tries to play out of the back too much, it could open up, and it could be a little bit of a bloodbath unless he plays kind of conservatively to the strengths Brighton have now.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because Salah's not in my team right now, but it could be before the weekend. Fixture difficulty, Liverpool 2.3, not too high actually. It's still good, but you'd expect perhaps Liverpool to be a bit higher than that. Defensively 0.8. So yeah, again, maybe something. I'll tell you what I wanted to show you, which was quite interesting, was a headed matchups. Actually, Liverpool have a very, very good headed matchup against Brighton. But Brighton, not too bad. Well, I said not too bad, 2.2 against Liverpool, so they've got a little bit of something. And then the zonals, as usual, Liverpool's right. Yeah. So, yeah, nothing too much changes here. I think it just depends whether, Mo got a couple of goals, didn't he, against it for Egypt? Didn't play the second game. Rested, coming up against Brighton. Perhaps a little bit, like I say, a bit in flux, perhaps, Gabe.
Hasn't had a consistent good run of form since 2021.
Yeah, true. I know. The thing is the way I look at Salah is that it's not a case of if, it's when. He will come good. It's just when he comes good. And it could be it could be as early as this week, given what you've just mentioned, right?
Yeah, it could be this week, but I don't see it being this period, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. And that's why at the moment I'm on De Bruyne. Yeah, I do see it completely. Nima, any views on Salah against KDB, your side at this moment?
Yeah, so I moved to KDB last week. I've seen talks of some people maybe moving back, and then KDB at Southampton the following week, moving back again. I think at this point, I just consider the next few fixtures as good enough until the blank. So I'm probably looking to firmly hold him, and I'll move back to Salah come the blank in game week 12. So, I didn't buy KDB just for 1 week for a hit. I'm not on Wildcard. I'm going to keep him. I did keep Diaz though, so I don't have Trent. I don't have Salah. I am nervous about this fixture specifically. But I think I'm just kind of praying that Luis Diaz gets something, because the likelihood is I'll then change him into Zaha and give me 10. So I would like a farewell gift if possible.
I'm actually without any of them, which worries me a lot. But I'm thinking that, if I can get past this one, can I actually get to 12 before needing them back? There's one thing which did come up, and Libero spooked me a little bit in one of the chats when he mentioned about possibly KDB getting benched against Southampton.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a risk. That would put a cat among the pigeons in the old calculation side of things, wouldn't it? I think.
I guess the Champions League is back, right? And you would assume that's the priority. And my view is that if Arsenal win on Saturday, I don't see how Pep is going to bench KDB if they're not top of the Premier League. So I think as long as Arsenal is top, I do not see the point getting benched in a Premier League match, regardless of the opposition. Personally, I can't imagine a world where he is benching one of his best players while not top of the Premier League. I just don't see that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think it's I see your perspective, Nima, and I kind of I agree with that as well. But I'm a little bit torn because the other side also makes sense here, in the sense that if KDB is definitely going to play the first leg of Copenhagen, right, to get through that first round, then it's the Southampton and then it's Copenhagen again before the match against Liverpool. If he plays those three games in a week, right, then and he sits for the second Copenhagen leg, then that means he won't have played a match of football for 8 days before he plays Liverpool. And that's a long time to go without a match. So Pep will probably want to get him some time against Copenhagen in that second leg, which is why working it backwards, which is why you could see him being rested against Southampton.
Yeah, I suppose we'll have to wait for the predictor percentages. Not that they're exactly too scientific. They're just people like us at home predicting their teams. But it gives you some hive mind, just confidence, I suppose, that he is going to or not going to play. Yeah, that's a tough one because I guess if you hold him, what do you do? Like if you think he's then benched, do you move to Son? Because then Son has great fixture in game week 11 as well. So I guess there are exit routes. Yeah. But then it's so I think I saw a thread from, is it Alex, the one he's the Man City fan and he writes a lot about Pep and stuff. He did a rotating premium mids thread, I think, this week for FPL. So it's Alex, I think it's MCFC, Man City FC. So he's on Twitter and he's got some great threads. But this one had him looking at Salah's great in game week 9, KDB's great in game week 10, Son's great in game week 11, Salah's great again in 12-13. So it's nothing wrong with that. If you're on a wild card and the rest of your team looks great, people say it's booking in transfers, but I say it's chasing captaincy hauls.
I mean, you got to have a pretty damn good team to play that way, I think.
Right. Where are we?
Welcome back.
All right. I was actually doing some research for a question which I'd just seen coming up while you busy. You got were too busy. Right. I'm just happy to let you talk sometimes. Not very often. There we go. What's that? Oh, I'll tell you what. Conversation on about Manchester City.
On we go to the Manchester Derby. But just for the record, guys, just as a reminder, we're skipping the mind-numbing fixtures like West Ham, Wolves, and the like, and kind of sticking to some major ones here, so we can try to keep this thing under 2 hours. But
you'll see the rest of them in the thread on Twitter from Gabe. So you can see this.
Check out the thread.
There. Yeah,
if you've got any specific questions about any of those fixtures, drop them in the chat so we can always cover them.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Okay, come on then. Let's keep going. So we've started on Manchester City, so we may as well go into the Manchester derby.
Yeah, so good segue here. Manchester City with 1.97 NetxG and United with a 1.22. Most likely results according to NetxG here is what is that? 2 for Manchester City, 1 for Manchester United. Although Manchester City do have an 18% chance of 3 goals, which 1 in 5 or whatever, 1 in 6 is pretty decent as well. Chances created. I mean, Manchester City chances created from left and right. They have 32 and 38 chances created from the left and the right, kind of more than in the center. But the goals come from the center. Just a reminder that chances created is basically where the game action started that led to a shot. So if the game action, if it's a dribble that starts on the left-hand side that leads to a shot in the middle, that's a chance created from the left-hand side because that's where it originated. Or if it's a pass from the right-hand side that leads to a shot from the middle, that is a chance created from the right-hand side. Manchester United, they have the fewest chances created from the left, only 10 chances created from the left all season, which I thought was interesting. And that's where Jadon Sancho is going to be playing. So it'd be interesting to see his evolving role and how they use him if he still continues to come inside and kind of be involved more centrally while Malacia overlaps him. They also have the joint third chances created from the right. So on the other side there, that's where a lot of the creation's coming from, and that's kind of like Bruno Fernandes kind of stepping in up towards the box, and he's usually on that right side. Whereas like Christian Eriksen will be on the left-hand side. I'll get to that interplay when I get to the tactics. But yeah, those diagonal balls from linking Eriksen and Bruno are kind of working for creating chances. Expected stats: Manchester City have 6 goals conceded with an expected goals on target conceded of only 3.7. And that's thanks to Ederson's 5th worst expected goals prevented, minus 2.3. That's what it accounts for that. Ederson hasn't been great, it must be said, but as well, they've also been unlucky. Manchester City with some like weird own goals and stuff like that. So I think those things will regulate. Their expected goals conceded is around the same as it's like right around 3 or something like that. So they're still by far the best defense in the league and well worth investing in, and that's why I'm keeping Cancelo in my wild card. Manchester United, from their expected stats, they have 8 goals, which is in line with their expected goals non-penalty at 8.6, but underperforms their expected goals on target. So they've been finishing well, like better than their expected goals would give them. However, I guess they've been facing maybe some good goalkeeping, and that's why they only have 8 goals. Let's see. I mean, Manchester, then shots. Nothing really surprising here. Manchester City top, Manchester United mid-table. We talked about the analysis of NetxG and all of that. Now let's look at the tactics in this game, because I think I have a prediction here that I wonder if it'll come true. So, well, the way I see things here is like United have been vulnerable. We see that we have 2 heat maps again. The top heat map is the chances created heat map on the top left side for City, and the chances conceded on the top right side for United. Notice the space in the let's see, for on the United side in their left defensive half space where they concede chances. There's like some turquoise areas there. That's kind of where Kevin De Bruyne hangs out and creates chances from. So to be vulnerable in that half space where Kevin De Bruyne is going to operate is really kind of like just a bad matchup for United here. So I do see De Bruyne with a potential haul in this matchup because of that. Foden could, if Foden is used on that right hand side, I think he could potentially haul. I don't know if he'll haul because he doesn't really haul, but I think Foden could see a return and get himself a good like 7 or 8 points in this match. If he can get to the end line, maybe play it across for Haaland, maybe get a couple of assists, maybe a goal himself if he's a little bit lucky. On the United side, the United, since they've switched to their counter-attacking system, they've been a lot more successful. And what they're doing is they're kind of playing in a shell. And then they're using Christian Eriksen. When they win the ball, they use Christian Eriksen as the link play to then penetrate the lines. And then Eriksen, what Eriksen will do, he'll play in kind of like the left side of central midfield deep, and he'll look for Bruno on the right side, in the right half space, really high up the pitch. And that kind of zigzag and diagonal has been working as far as their counterattacks are concerned. But I think Pep is going to be onto this, and I really think Pep is going to take Eriksen out of the picture. And what that'll do, if you take away the passing lanes to Eriksen, then what happens is Bruno actually has to drop in, and they're missing that link play. So it's the front three will be isolated from the rest of the team. I think that's how City's going to win this game, and I think United's going to kind of come crashing back down to earth a little bit.
Yep, I tend to agree with you. I think it could be... I saw interested to see NetxG that it's green all the way across for Manchester for City. Yeah, there we go. Let's go back to that slide. You can see it there. I tend to agree with you, and I think if we look at the fixture difficulty and everything as well, fixture difficulty 3.1 for attack, 1.6 for defense, potential double returns there for players like Cancelo. So he's going nowhere. For me. Then we start talking about headed matchups, 3.2. Haaland, fairly obvious for me there as well. And then zonals, and you talk about the right, and there you go, Gabe. But they're good all the way across. So, and there's nothing for just United, really. So I just think it's fairly obvious. Now, would it, there is a chance it wouldn't, they may concede, but because it's a local derby, right? And it's going to be, United are not going to sit down and just roll over and let them tickle the tummy, right? They're going to have a go for it. So for that reason, I just think it's 3-1 is my guess.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, 3-1's my guess. Okay, that's that one. Unless we've got anything else to talk about City, I think we can always go back into the City, Liverpool, and everything else debate when we talk about the wildcards, chaps. So. Sure. Nima, do you want to just do a shout?
Yes, I think we'll go to wildcards after this quick little shout out. So, seeing as there's more viewers now as well, we're up to about 30 live viewers. Before I give a quick big thank you to everyone who nominated us in the Football Content Awards. So we've made it to the final 6 in the creators category for best in fantasy football. If you have ever found this content useful, helpful, if you're new to the channel today, we would appreciate you taking 15 seconds to leave a vote on the FCA website. There's a link in the live chat and in the YouTube and podcast description. So drop us a vote. And I think the deadline is 9th of October before we find out who the final top 3 are in November. So yeah, thank you everyone for helping us make it to the final 6. And hopefully we might somehow sneak into the top 3. But fingers crossed, guys.
It would be very nice, wouldn't it? I mean, look, let's face it, we are up against some real heavy hitters. As I always talk about little old Grimsby, it's just like little old Net That Haul, isn't it? But we're out to do a bit of a giant killing job as usual. So, if we can take a few down, fantastic. Just achieving the finalists is monumental for us, really. And let's face it, who are we up against? Some absolute fantastic content. So I cannot. There isn't a bad choice among them.
Yeah, I think best of luck to all the fellow competitors, as you say.
I agree, best of luck, but I disagree that there's not a bad choice. I think any choice that's not Net That Haul is a bad choice. It's just I might be biased, maybe. I would have to look at that, but yeah, I'm going to stick with that opinion.
Yeah. You are biased. Guys, I like being biased. That's okay. I can cope with bias that way.
So what do you guys want to do? Do you want to do the captaincy metric first?
Yeah, let's get the captaincy out of the way, and let's get the captaincy out of the way, and then dive back in, because I think a lot of the questions tend to be around the wild card this week anyway.
So we'll answer them as we go. Yeah, sounds good.
We can look at it that way. All right, let's have a look.
Let's go to the game week 9 captaincy.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what happened there. I don't know whether I had a problem this side, but everything stopped. There's a bit of a thunderstorm here in Singapore right now, so that probably explains it. Okay, captaincy metric. Well, surprise, surprise.
Shocker.
It's getting a bit of a stuck record. The only thing is now, as you know, we changed this a few weeks ago to take into account percentiles with respect to all the different metrics that we look at. So minutes on the pitch, haul, returns, form, and then that's talking about the previous game weeks, last 6. And then obviously for this game week with respect to fixture difficulty, anytime returns, expected points, and also zonal matchups, to give an overall number. And the only question is now is how many more weeks is it going to be before Haaland actually has 100 across the entire board? Because he's nearly there. He's what is it? 5 out of 8 now. So yeah, fair enough. 8. So minutes wise, don't seem to be a concern for Haaland these days. Ever the word to start with, but I think people are not so worried about that these days. And this is obviously again following by the metric. Haul, yeah, right up there, 90. The returns, 100. Form, best as well, 100. Fixture difficulty, the best. Anytime return, the best. Expected points, the best. And zonal matchup, okay. But like I say, he doesn't need the chances, does he? He doesn't need the touches. He doesn't need the chances. He just finds a way. It's quite a solid captaincy metric pick as well. 3 clear of KDB in second with 93. So that's by no means bad. And, if you look at, the only thing is, I think if you look at Haaland's EO, it could be extremely high again this week. Because I think poll-wise, I think it was over, I think I saw on Hub over 60% for Haaland. It's going to be high, right? So yeah, I think it's super high. But look, KDB, I think, is a great option again. I've been saying it for a few weeks. I'm just not that type of player to go and captain him. I'm the type of player to captain Haaland in this type of week. And then a big gap to Salah. Look, a big gap, even with a reasonably positive fixture difficulty against Brighton. That shows that Salah has still got a way to go with respect to these metrics before he needs a very good fixture to top the metric right now. A very, very good fixture. And he hasn't got one for a few weeks. So for that reason, I actually think that there's another reason why potentially you can go without Salah, because I think there are better captaincy options right out there right now. Foden, you've mentioned. Cancelo, we've talked about double returns. Maddison, no hauls, or very low on hauls, as you can see. Minutes-wise, down a bit. But so basically his last 6, not great with respect to all his past stuff. But this is picking up on potentially the fixture difficulty, I think, going forwards. And let's face it, I think if anybody's going to get something or potentially get a haul for Leicester right now, it's Maddison. I think it's him or no one for me in the attacking side of things. And we will talk about defense later, but it's not for this point of view. And then we've got Diaz. Jesus is still up there, maybe perhaps because of that zonal matchup look. Again, that's really stands out for him. Mitrovic, very poor on hauls, but he's still kicking around, and Tony. So, yeah, I mean, look, for me, guys, I don't know what we need to speak too much about this captaincy. It's a little bit of a stuck record right now for Haaland, but I think I'd be interested to know if you think about the order, if you're happy with the order of some of the other. If anybody really fancies a punt, who would you go? Who would you go for this week? Would you go for KDB?
Is KDB a punt? I don't know if I'd consider him a punt.
No, maybe not. Well, I mean, look, he's lower owned, isn't he? If you owned Haaland, I've always said this, right? I always say you've got that fallback option if you own both. I'm sure most people do now. So it softens the blow somewhat because you're still owning Haaland, right? And KDB got one assist, the other vice versa. So maybe not so much of a punt. Who would you consider a punt then?
Tony?
Okay.
Maddison, yeah.
Yeah, Maddison, I think. For me, I think the punt would be Maddison if it was me.
Would it surprise you if Leicester just can't score? They don't get big chances. Madison doesn't put away a worldie. He gets no free kicks and he blanks.
Yeah,
That would
Forest
not surprise me.
I mean, you know me, I like Forest, but they're absolute shit.
They
really
are shit.
poor.
Yeah,
really poor.
Can't argue that.
Look, if there's a week for Madison, it's this week. That's the way I look at it. I mean, look, we'll talk about wildcards in a second, but he's made it into my wildcard at this moment in time for that reason. In fact, why don't we go there now? Should we go to the wildcards now? May as well.
Yeah, let's do the wildcards, and then we'll take some of the questions we've started.
So there's my wildcard. So it's on the screen now if you can see it. It's a bit small, but anyway, there we go. Let's have a quick look. So at the moment, I've got Gaeta and Ward in goal. Yes, we've already discussed Gaeta. So if you want to go back into the matchup for Palace, you'll hear about that. Fixtures look. I mean, ignore the FDRs for the official site because we know they're crap. But there's a sea of green, shall we say? I quite like Palace's fixtures going forward. I do take your point, Gabe, about the goalkeeper, about the possibility he might not start. I'll have to have a look at that. Defensively, I've got James, Justin. In fact, James and Justin. There we go. It's quite deliberate. Put it in that order as well. It took me a while to get it in that order.
That's why you're really tired. You were up late last night trying to get it in that order.
But James, I think, is fairly obvious. Justin, there was a question, I think, from Boona, wasn't it? Was it Castagne or Justin? Justin's 0.1 cheaper. No other reason. That's all it is. James Justin destroyed me a couple of times in previous seasons. He hasn't done much this year. His numbers are awful. Numbers are absolutely awful. But
Leicester.
Yeah, it's Leicester.
It's the binary team.
I've potentially got
zeros.
potentially double defense looking at me. Oh my God. Anyway, there we go. The only thing which makes me vomit even more than the potential double Leicester defense is Neto Williams. Sorry. I hate that pick, but I'm really fed up that Patterson got injured. Emerson, I mean, it's not forced to be out of the picture, is he, for West Ham? But spooks you a little bit with him not playing. So at the moment, Williams is in. Cancelo and Trippier, fairly obvious. That's defense. Running across, and again, I mean, feel free to jump in if you don't like anything, guys. Martinelli, he's not going anywhere. I've got value in him, and I actually think that he's still an absolutely brilliant pick. Really, I've no worries about him whatsoever. Zaha, for me, going to Zaha, that says something. Normally his form's off a cliff by now because the transfer window's closed, but he's still doing things, and he's just a bit cheaper, which just helps me with my structure and everything else. So I quite like him. Maddison's in there as well. KDB and Andreas. Andreas I hate, but he's the best of a bad bunch. So from my side at this moment in time, apart from a Phil Billing look, which I'm going to have a look at, how much is Billing, by the way?
He won't be that cheap.
5.
Yeah, probably 5.
That's expensive.
I'll check.
It won't be fifth mid territory. It'll probably be fifth mid territory.
For Bournemouth assets. I don't like them. Yeah. And then up front, Tony, Mitrovic, and Haaland. So
he's 5'3".
5'3".
Yeah. I mean, I need the money. I'm going to keep the money so I can get back to Salah from KDB.
So how much do you have in the bank?
I think it was
FPL Jones.
I can soon tell you. Hang on a second. Team transfers. Well, 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.2 in the bank. So yeah. Well, it is what it is. I'm not mad on it. I always intended to wildcard through the international break, so it was almost like a predefined sort of moment to go for it. But yeah, what's my thinking behind no Liverpool? Well, yeah, good point. Trent, not interested right now. Spread the funds. Salah, form's terrible, but it's Salah. Diaz is a probably the biggest dilemma of the lot, because it makes me think, do I want some Liverpool cover? But saying that, can I see Maddison potentially covering, getting as many points as him? Yeah, but I think I probably can, given the fact the fixtures are a little bit tougher for Liverpool in the next few weeks. So it's a tough one. I might end up back on Diaz just to give me some Liverpool cover, because I'm that type of player. I'm that type of. I'm fairly risk adverse, as you know.
Where would you put Diaz in your draft here?
I'd probably take Maddison out.
In for Maddison?
Yeah.
Any love for Sinistera from Leeds? So Nick Khan asks as well, but I've seen a few people. I think it might have been Adam or Baker from Above Average. They have replaced Martinelli on their wildcard. I think it's Adam. He's on wildcard. That's it. He's replaced Martinelli with Sinistera at like 6.5 million. Any love there?
Leeds, I mean, I see nothing in the fixture difficulty with respect to matchups for Leeds at all.
I think it's more him as an individual. So obviously Nick's saying he's got 5 goals in his last 4 games for club and country. He's playing a makeshift filler back line that maybe doesn't have Matty Cash. Like, I don't hate it. Like, I think you could argue he's got better fixtures than Martinelli, but like in your wildcard, I don't see who else you would take out apart from Martinelli for him. That's the issue. And
why would I take
Martinelli? Like, are you going to sell him?
Martinelli out and then have to buy him back by the time we get to game week 13 when the fixtures turn again? Quite favourably, actually. If you look at the long range fixture difficulty, and again, you could be able to go in and freeze it. In fact, probably show you it actually. 20. Hang on a second.
The one thing I'll say for this coming matchup,
Arsenal's fixture difficulty then turns round again and turns quite fairly positive. So I'm just thinking, what's the point of taking him out? I just see me moving back. I would move back to him. It would just cost me money to move back. So I may as well just hold him.
I know Nick likes Sinisterra, but this coming matchup, it's the zonal matchup for Leeds is way better on the left-hand side. It's like if you bring them up. So I think
hang on. So let me go to yeah. 1 second. Yeah, on the left.
See, it's 4.3 on the left, 2.9 on the center, and 2.5 on the right. So that wouldn't be Sinisterra there. So I don't know. I do like, actually, and you guys will see this in the thread, I like Mark Rocca in that left half space, kind of doing similar things. There's like that left half space like that Xhaka's doing, that Gundogan does, and Mark Rocca is doing similar things in there as well.
So that's where I am right now. I mean, there's a few things could change. I need to do a bit more research, if I'm honest with you, but I will post it. I will post my thoughts going forwards now. I'll probably just do a bit of a couple of brain dumps probably between now and the deadline. Now I'm starting to switch back onto FPL, provided that my body clock actually switches back on, which at the moment I'm still somewhere over the Black Sea, I think. So I'm quite a long way away from being back in Singapore with my body clock. Gabe, should we have a look at yours?
Yeah, just really quickly, let's take a pause. Let's send Nima home sick. Get him to bed. The poor guy. I can see his face. He's like, he's struggling, man. I feel bad. Nima, you need to get better, man.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna try and hopefully I feel better with a few days rest. I'm starting to get a bit worried about whether I actually be better by Saturday for this North London derby at this rate. But no, it was great to see you both. I'm a bit upset I can't see it through to the end, but I believe the ship is in capable hands. There's some starred questions as well. I think Mara knows where they are, and Gabe, it sounds like you found the Discord questions. So I will listen back to the end tomorrow, and I'll get the pod uploaded for anyone listening on pod as well. But
get well soon, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you both. I'm going to make sure I click leave studio and not end broadcast. I'm just making sure.
Yes, don't do what Gabe did the other week.
I'm not going anywhere ever again.
No.
I'll see you guys soon. Cheers, guys.
Get better, buddy. And we're still live.
Right, we're still live. That's the main thing. Right, let's look at your wild card, Gabe.
Okay, my wild card in this one, it is quite small in there, isn't it? So My wild card, I have Raya in goal, James Cancelo, Trippier is the back three. I'm in a 3-4-3, by the way. I have Phil Foden, James Madison, Luis Diaz, and Wilfred Zaha, the midfield three. I think it says De Bruyne there. I don't know. It must not have saved. It's not. It's not De Bruyne. That's actually. It's supposed to be Foden. And then I have Holland, Mitrovic, and Tony up top with 4.2 million in the bank. My subs are my bench is Everson, Andreas, Gay, and Neko Williams. And so just I guess I'll go through my thinking here, starting at the back with Raya. So Raya's in because Brentford they play very differently against weaker opposition. They control and they stifle the midfield more, and Raya is actually more involved in passing when they have more possession. We see a lot of kind of direct balls from Raya to Tony. That's what I was talking about earlier in the show. This kind of like possessing the ball more, increased chance of a clean sheet, and his passes will, I think, put Raya closer to bonus points. Raya, I know that they haven't kept a clean sheet yet this season, but he does have the most saves. He has 30 saves, and he has the most saves from big chances. And so I look at saves from big chances as kind of like a goalkeeper saving ability, or certainly a major part of it. So I believe he can keep the clean sheets. He has the ability to do so, unlike Ward or Everson. We haven't seen Everson yet, but I don't think he has that ability just yet. The midfield, I'm going with the treble 8 with Foden, Luis Diaz, Zaha, the treble 8. Well, sorry, Madison, and then Zaha as well. I guess he's closer to 7 than to 8. But those four, because I want to focus my premiums on the form players like Kane and Holland, and not on a not informed player when I have like Salah when I have informed premium players. So that was my kind of thinking there. Madison and Zaha, given their roles, their kind of talismanic roles in their fixtures, and Zaha especially because he kind of drifts in from the left wing to the 9 as well. So he should be the focal point of their attack. And then the 4.2 million in the bank gives me even money to go. Oh, the front line, Mitrovic, Holland, and Tony. Tony's really just for the Bournemouth matchup. And the 4.2 million is just enough money to go Tony to Kane in game week 10.
So you're genuinely, you're 2 moves away from Salah.
Yeah,
you're happy to be 2 moves away from Salah.
I think 2 moves from any player is fine. If the way
I feel you're losing a bit of flexibility with this treble 8. I said this to you before, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's something which always just bothers me a little bit. I'm always been even in a wild card, I'm still trying to find that structure. I think we're a lot better with respect to knowing what's going on now, with respect to rather than the start of the season. So it's not as important. But that said, I still look at it and say, well, we're actually at a point now where the fixtures are shifting a little bit, and they shift again in 13. And I wouldn't want to be having to take a hit to get Salah back, and that's on the basis of the fact that he could go off at any time, and when he does, people will be on him like an absolute shot. That is a fact, right? That's what's going to happen. This is FPL, right? So, to then have to take a hit to get him back, potentially, unless you have no fires to fight, and God help, I hope we don't have any fires to fight, but the closer we get to the World Cup, I think the more fires we're going to have to fight, personally. I don't know. I like the team. I like that. I like the idea. Diaz, particularly, I think he's enough Liverpool cover, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, and I guess my question to the flexibility is, how many points are you willing to sacrifice for flexibility?
Well, it's a good point, but again, apart from when I was backed into a corner at the end of last season, when I was hanging on for grim death, trying to hit my way through whilst everyone else was unloading chips. I don't like taking hits.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I've only taken one this season so far. So for me, it's more the fact that, you know, I quite like the idea of the double, the two premiums up top. I don't dislike it, but then it tells me that I've got to then do something. I've got to do some surgery to my team to then change it back. And that's why I've always gone with that 1 and 1 rather than 2 and, you know, I'm more likely to go 3. I'd more likely go threemium than double, if I'm honest with you.
This draft kind of came from a desire to go threemium. But then I was thinking like that really the value isn't there when one of them I'm not going to captain Salah in the next 4 fixtures.
Yeah.
I just won't. So what's the point of kind of like wasting that money there? But I still wanted coverage from all of these teams, and I wanted to take advantage of some of these fixtures. And kind of the only way I saw to do it was to get rid of Martinelli and go with this block of like 7 to 8 million. And I don't think I'll have an emergency to get to Salah. Like I think that type of thinking is wrong. That's chasing points gone. It's if you want Salah, then okay, then that's fine that you can have Salah, but make a plan for Salah. You know, see his fixtures and make a plan for him if he comes into form. But don't just rush to get him one game week because he hauled the previous game week, and that's when kind of hits come into play. But
I still come back to the fact that, you know, we look at Salah and we say, oh, you know, he's not going to do, you know, he can return on any given week. He can return a couple of goals on any given week. I don't care who he plays. Maybe City's probably the only.
But he hasn't in half the games he's played this season. He hasn't. No, so yes, he can on any, but he hasn't, and he's not doing it. Whereas Kane is consistently every single week.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, look, I stand by what I'm saying. I still think being 2 moves away from Salah is a little bit of a concern for me. That's where I am. I don't know. I mean, that's just the way I play. You know, I'm not saying you're wrong by any means, but for me, you know, it just seems a way away from him, and you know, and we're presuming that we're not going to have any fires to fight around a certain point. Now, of course, you can perhaps find your way towards him, but you know, if you were going to go back to Salah, you know, who are you going to jettison? That's the next question.
Kane.
You'd jettison Kane eventually, would you?
Yeah, Kane, I mean, that's an easy Kane and Foden, or Kane and Luis Diaz for whomever and Salah.
But Kane's fixtures are better game week 13 to 16 according to Fixture.
That's why I'm going with Kane. But that's why I'm going with Kane over Salah on my wild card.
But Salah's fixtures are better than Kane come game week 13 as well.
But it's not game week 13. But it's not game week 13 yet. That's my point. Like I can go from game week 10 to game week 13 with Kane, and then from game week 13 forward, do that double move and then proceed with Salah. I feel like it's a lot less complicated than people are making it out to be. It's actually it's pretty simple. I think.
We'll see.
It's that way.
We'll see. I mean, where I come from at this moment in time, I looked at Spurs, I looked at that premium, I looked at Kane, I looked at the fixture difficulty. I thought, you know what? I'll just put it up actually to show you. There we go. So that you can see there that Spurs fixture difficulty between 9 and 12 is at 2.7. That's cumulative, so not too great. Okay, but then it goes to 7.9. So Liverpool 5.5 to 9.1. So from that side, you know, I see Liverpool having, even given the fixture they've got, although probably this 2.3 probably, should we say, weights it a little bit with respect to that initial game. Liverpool's fixture difficulty is, it's obviously much, much worse than what it normally is. I mean, that's very obvious, right? But then it recovers back. Their second best fixture difficulty come 13. So, as I say, for me, I think the issue is, you know, once you get to game week 13, I actually think that early season template comes flying back into our face.
Yeah.
Really flying back. Look at Arsenal. So you've got Arsenal, City, and Spurs jumping off the page at you and saying, you know, that's where you need to be. So, I've played my wild card, but for that reason alone, if you're umming and ahhing about the wild card, you can possibly avoid it. Go for there. Go then. Is where I would say, because there is a swing there for me.
Yeah, there's a swing. I just think there's 4 game weeks is just too little time to reap the rewards of a good wild card.
Well, yeah, we've only got a few more weeks to go, and then it's the World Cup anyway, so then we can play again. I think that's the other thing, Gabe, isn't it? Is the fact we're not actually going to try and get this wild card through to game week 31, right? Or something like or something like that, 33, 34, 35. We've got the ability to unlimited transfers come the World Cup. So yeah, it's again another different way of playing FPL this season. So are you going to keep people up to date with your wildcard tinkering as you go, or are you nearly there, or have you got some more to?
It hasn't changed very much in almost a week, I have to say. So I think I'm pretty much there. I think the only decision, and this is kind of like an left wing punt, is do I go with Jota instead of Tony? If I believe in that Serbi's going to come out playing from the back and Liverpool is going to come out pressing. That's like a really kind of like left field punt that I'm considering. But there's no way I don't know how I will know whether Jota starts. And just that risk of him not starting will make me probably just stay with Tony.
That feels punty to me.
It's super punty.
That's punty. I've no problem in a punt at all. But I just feel that maybe feels a little bit extreme, especially given the fact that, Liverpool's fixtures are not great either. So or not as good as they could be. So, if you're looking at a player, perhaps Diaz is the better option. He's just more, at least you feel he's more nailed, right? So, maybe he is. I think he is anyway.
And I think he's been Liverpool's best player. So
okay. Should we quickly go through these questions? Because I think at the get-go I said I need to leave at 7:40. It's 2 minutes.
All right, let's go through them really quickly. Should I start with the Discord ones?
Yeah, very quick. Yeah.
All right. Dawn Black Dragon comes in and says, "Used one free transfer, Isak out, Tony in, and continue to play, or Kulu versus Arsenal, or use a free transfer for DS in versus Brighton and Kulu out. Keep injured Isak on bench, but for how long is his injury? Transfer Isak out, get Tony in against Bournemouth. Easy, right?"
Yeah, that's what I'd do. I've sold him.
Okay. Nehal comes in. Next question. What do you all think about these moves? He's on that Game Week 13 wild card, by the way. Game Week 9, Gundogan to Madison. Game Week 10, Martinelli to Zaha. Game Week 11, Cancelo to Cucurella. Game Week 12, Jesus to Darwin/Jota. Game Week 13, buy all City Arsenal assets back with Trent.
I only got as far as Game Week 10, so before I was trying to write it down. Madison, I'm okay with. I don't know about Gundogan. Is Gundogan gonna?
Gundogan's gone. He's moving Gundogan to Madison. So yeah, I think that's a good move.
Already gone.
Martinelli to Zaha. I don't mind it.
No, not for me. Why sell him? You're going to want him back
because he blanks. In the following game week,
I'll bench him. I'll plan to bench him. That's no problem. I'll plan to bench him. I'll plan to bench Haaland. I ain't selling Haaland either. I know there's a couple of questions about Haaland, whether you'd sell him. No,
I wouldn't sell Haaland either. I think Martinelli's fine to sell though, especially for Zaha with his fixtures. Game week 11, Cancelo to Cucurella. I don't like the Cucurella shout too much. I don't know. I think that one's a wait and see. Chelsea's a wait and see.
I mean, again, you could probably, if you can get away with it, I'll probably have 2 City and 1 Arsenal on my bench in game week 12, and that probably they will be Cancelo, Martinelli, and Haaland. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just want them all back for game week 13. So, I mean, like I said, this is another good reason to wildcard. You could dead end into 12 and then wildcard out of that, out into 13, right?
Let me ask you something, Mariner. And I tweeted this poll. Who do you think scores the least amount of points in the next 8 game weeks? Martinelli. Yeah, the least amount. Martinelli, Zaha, Foden, Luis Diaz.
Next 8 game weeks, least amount of points.
Yep.
Yes. Zaha.
Zaha, really, with the one extra game.
Oh no, he's got an extra game. Oh, mind you, no, he's got that extra game, hasn't he? That's true.
He'll play in game week 11, whereas Martinelli will and Foden will not.
I'll tell you what, I've got a mistake in this fixture difficulty. I need to correct it. I've not took that game week 12 out. There we go. That probably explains it. But yeah. Yeah, it could be Martinelli. Could be.
So 40% of the people, almost 40% of the people that responded to the poll says Martinelli. And that's why I think Martinelli is fine to sell, especially for that 8 million block. So
yeah, true. I just think it's just that
for some people, if you can,
he just sits in that bracket where I've got value in him. I've got some value in him. I know you have value to sell it, right? But,
he's 6'6". He's 6'6". He's gonna blank. You can sell him for 6'3" if you got him at 6 million, and then if he drops a couple, it's only going to cost you 0.1 or something like that.
Let's see. At the moment,
I'm just saying he's a fine hold, but he's also a fine sell, I think, in my opinion.
Difficulty for the Discord when I get a chance, but
Greenback golfer asks, I see all the criticism of Solanke and ask, is it really justified? Played some of the stingy defenses and capitalized on the Forest fixture with the fixture run. 0.6% ownership and on pens. Is he really a bad third striker choice?
I mean, look, let's be honest, right? How the hell is Bournemouth top of any fixture difficulty ticker? I just don't. It's fucking barking mad. It's beyond ridiculous. I mean, at home, I can see them getting at home slightly. They're probably going to a little bit better than a lot better than away, probably. It's not an easy place to go. Tight pitch, difficult, But no, I just don't see it. I mean, look, as a third striker, the only argument is are you going if you're perhaps thinking a threemium? He's a good enabler, I think. The other slight positive of him is the fact that our fifth midfielder now is more of probably cooling somewhat on someone like Andreas.
Yeah.
So, would you go that 3-4-3? I actually think, and I didn't mention it, and I'm going to mention it now. If you look at the fixture difficulty between if you look at the fixture difficulty between game week 9 and 12 and 13, 16, attack is miles over defense now with respect to the numbers. So for me, it does suggest 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 at this moment in time. So I do think that if you're going to set your wild card up, I think you're setting your wild card up. I think you're setting up more for a 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 than you are going big at the back for sure, or something like that.
We did talk about it earlier. I mean, FPL General tweeted this. Said Amadou Onana, Marc Roca, and Salomon Rondon are 3 players that have a higher XG this season than Dominic Solanke. So, no, don't waste a forward spot on Solanke. In my opinion, anyway.
We've had this before, haven't we? We've had these debates before. With players like last season,
Emmanuel Dennis,
things like that. Dennis,
Wood, Weghorst,
players like that. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're in a shit team, it's never gonna. I mean, like I say, you might get a couple of returns, and at that price is fine. If it fits your structure, I have no problem with it. But for me, I did look at it and very quickly decided against it.
Okay, that's the last question from Discord. You want to hit some of the starred ones here in the chat?
Right. Okay. So we'll start here. Best replacement for Gundogan, 7.8 in the bank, and already triple Arsenal.
I'm assuming they have their wild card intact. I guess Zaha.
Yeah, I think so.
Even against Chelsea. I don't mind him against Chelsea. I think he's okay against Chelsea.
No, he could easily get something against Chelsea, couldn't he? Yeah. So we're now talking about FPL Zaha now. We just didn't talk about Zaha. Now FPL Zaha asks, Jesus to Mitrovic with a hit.
Not for
the answer to that for me is no. And not with that matchup. You would play him this week.
Yes, agreed.
Boona, Justin or Castagna? I've answered this already. No, most won't like either. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't like it, but needs must. If I had to go one or the other, it's Justin because he's slightly cheaper. Don't discount someone like Gay. Palace, I think he is as good a pick. It just depends what you're doing with respect to your goalkeeper.
I think tactically Castagna on the right side is probably better. He'll link up with Maddison a little bit more and maybe provide more assists, especially if Harvey Barnes is crashing that far post. Those balls are likely to come more from Castagna than Justin. I would lean Castagna, but commiserations for the fact that you're in the Leicester defense market.
I'm in double.
Oh,
I need a drink. I had a drink for 6 months. Maybe I need to start again. We'll see. I mean, look, the reason I've got double is because purely and simply is that the second Leicester keeper's cheap, right? So there we go. Best goalkeeper combo for the wild card. That's interesting. Well, I'm on Guay and Ward at the moment. Not Guay, Gaeta and Ward. Sorry, I should say. You're on Raya and
Everson.
Right, okay. So you're relying on Everson to go up 0.1 because he's just getting close to that 0.1 rise.
I've lost that 0.1. So I'm just going to stay with him. Hope that he starts at some point, but whatever. I will say I do like Fabianski. I think Fabianski is a nice sneaky pick on a wild card. He's 5.0, so he's a little too expensive. Yeah. And the other one I was wondering, I wanted to get your opinion on Meslier.
No,
because don't Leeds have good fixtures, or am I mistaken?
Well, not in the fixture difficulty.
Not in the FPR. Okay.
No. I mean, to be honest with you, if I was looking at it purely on fixture difficulty, who would I go for? Leicester's defensive fixture difficulty is okay. Wolves' defensive fixture difficulty is not too bad. So
interesting. So Zaha's been fantastic.
Yeah. So his fixture difficulty is not too bad, but I've owned him before and that ended in tears. So I'm not sure I'm going to go there.
I just don't have the cash. If I had the cash, I would definitely upgrade the Raya. But I think Raya is the best 4-5.
Yeah, I mean there's nothing in his matchups either suggests to Brentford really. So
no.
To be honest, we could talk about goalkeepers for ages, but someone made a fantastic point earlier. I didn't see it. It might cost you 10 points between now and game week 16. Goalkeepers isn't the most important thing. It's finding the way. It's finding those enablers to get you the points, the players in who are going to score you the points, which is key. Next one from another one from FPL Jones bloke actually. TA or Salah for wild card. You're going to say neither, aren't you?
No, I mean, I will say Salah. I think Salah is a fine and a good wild card pick, almost an obvious one. You just have to choose. Like you'll go without other players, but I think Salah is great. I think TAA is a little bit. It's a little wishful thinking. It's like he's not played well all season, like himself as a player. Never mind the injuries, the team, the system, or anything like that. He's looked utterly lost. He's been manhandled by a variety of players. He's been outwitted by a variety of players, and that's affecting his confidence. And their fixtures aren't good, so I don't understand why go into Liverpool defense right now. That's a wait for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll just quick fire the rest then and get out of here. So rate Vardy as a captain between 1 and 10. I think we both said 0.
Yep, doesn't fit on that scale.
Yeah, we're not going there. Sorry, Abdul Rahman. Yeah, we've talked about Sinisterra actually already, haven't we?
Yeah.
Kane to Haaland in game week 12. No. No.
Don't sell Haaland. Don't ever sell Haaland.
Yeah, and Yasny. I'm on a wild card. Would you choose Tony and Martinelli and Trent, or Solanke, Martinelli and Trent, or Tony and Bailey and Trent? Basically, it's either Tony or Trent.
Tony.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure if there's any more, but I'll tell you what, I'm afraid we'll have to get out of here because I am getting to the point of having to go to work because it's God almighty. I mean, my body clock's all over the place. It feels like 2 o'clock in the morning to me right now.
Yeah.
I've got to work. So anyway, there we go. Gabe, as always, a pleasure. Jen, apologies if we've not got to your question. We will, feel free to reach out to Gabe and myself on Twitter or in the chat, in the comments, and we'll answer them in the comments on the YouTube as well. So we'll do that. Gabe, thank you very much as always.
My pleasure, my friend. Hope you get some rest eventually sometime today. Take a nap on your lunchtime or something like that. But always a pleasure.
Yeah. And keep us up to date with your wildcard tinkering. No doubt we'll speak about it before. Have you got any more content coming up this week, or are we just running to the deadline now?
We may do a tactics show with Libero FPL tomorrow. We're still running through some options in regards to that, and then you'll see the matchups thread, which will be posted with a new look, the dark and the light. So the Analytics FC and the Grass FC, both combined, joined in harmony.
So get rid of the beef. You're going grass-fed beef.
We're going plant-based. Everything plant-based. Grass FC, baby, plant-based. Smoke them if you got them.
Plant-based matchups, outstanding. Right, let's get out of here. Nice to see you, everybody, and green arrows for the weekend. And we'll catch you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.